come to order on the meeting of November 20th. Our first order of business is for the commission to consider the minutes from October 16th, 2018. Has everybody had a chance to go through the minutes to their satisfaction, or do we want to take another few minutes to look at those?
I'm good with it.
All right. Well, I will point out that in the Plum Island Blue section, I wasn't here, so I couldn't possibly second.
Oh, really? It must have been an old one.
Yeah.
I'll figure out who that is and fix it.
And yeah, typo. Okay.
But the typo should be fixed if we did go
Yeah,
through
on the
that.
updated ones.
What's that?
On the updated ones.
On the updated.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. There was a typo on Nancy. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, then we will move on to the public. Oops, sorry.
I will make a motion to accept the minutes and place them on file.
Thank you. So everybody knows this is my first time doing this. All those in favor?
Aye. Any opposed?
Any opposed? Okay. Our first appearances for Brian and Kelly Kelly, 335th Street, and continued NOI to raise an existing home and construct a new single-family dwelling. They are not going to be coming tonight.
No, I had a conversation with the applicant, and they want a meeting. They have just obtained permission to use the town right-of-way to gain access to their home, so they would like to come in and have a conversation around that prior to resubmitting. So it was their request to continue to next month.
A motion will continue.
Also, go ahead. All those in favor? It's going to be for a while. It's going to be tough. It's only been 20-something years.
Yeah. Our next case is for Plum Island Blue at 17C Fordham Way. Also a continued NOI to build a single-family home. They are also going to be continuing. Doug, do you have anything to say about this?
They are going to be continuing. They're less than 2 years with their application, so it would be my recommendation to keep it active. But what I would have them do when they come back in is re-notify their abutters and place an ad in the paper because they've been away for too long. So I guess it would be my recommendation that we continue them to the next meeting.
Anybody on the board feel otherwise about it?
Just, can we put sort of a hard, instead of just punting continually? Maybe like, you know, if they get 5 of these or 6 of these, whatever, and then we drop them and then they do have to resubmit.
Yeah, that's something we've done before, Brian. If they don't get in touch with us over and over and over again, I'll usually give them a call and say, look, you either need to start coming in or we're going to drop you off, for not.
Right.
Do you want a number on that?
It's your
This is like in January or February, or I mean, just so that.
beginning of the new year.
All right, so then I guess there's a motion if by the January meeting, we have not heard anything from them.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we want them to do a resubmit and re-notify and the thing anyway.
Well, they're going to do that anyway, but their notice of intent is still good for 2 years. I don't think that we can reject their notice of intent. We can table them for an undetermined amount of time. We can just table it for an undetermined amount of time and then have them re-notify when they come back in. We can do that.
Yeah, just
but their notice of intent is, again, the submittal is good for 2 years.
Fair point. Anyway, yeah, just to sort of like thin the herd and that kind of thing.
All right, go ahead and turn that into a motion, Brian.
Ooh. What's the right language there?
How about if we
how about a motion to table if we're not doing anything to
notify all.
just leaving it off.
How about if we notify all applicants that aren't meeting the burden of moving forward as of January 1st?
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those not in favor? Okay, so moved.
But this is continued to the next.
This will be continued to December. But then,
And then further to the January meeting, and then we'll make that thing in January. We'll do that in January.
Okay, next is Karen Cumberland with 35 Northern Boulevard.
Hi, I'm Carrie Welch. I'm here on Karen's behalf.
Okay.
Karen
Karen, I think
has
it's going to be
sent-
nice enough to get you a chair.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't need standing in here.
I don't have to.
If you want,
Okay.
no, you do not have to.
Okay. So Karen had an issue with some blacktop that she had laid down in the springtime. And she had proposed, and I know that she sent some copies to you, Doctor, and I have other copies.
Can we have another
So she had determined with you guys, I think at the last meeting, that there was 252 feet of blacktop that needed to be removed to bring her back into compliance. So she has, I can have mine on that way so you guys can look at them. So she is proposing removing some of the blacktop from the right side of her driveway that's facing directly onto her house, and then some in between the two sets of stairs that lead the two entries for the house. And that would bring her driveway back into compliance.
This is going back. I
So
missed the last one.
what-
This is
what
going
she-
back to our photo gate.
What she's done, yeah, she's taken the 9 by 28,
Yeah.
and she's broken it up into 2 areas that she's giving back, so that she can keep the majority of her parking area and not lose it. Looks like she's done a pretty good job. I mean, I think last time in here, we told her it was just a matter of numbers, and it is. I think she's done a pretty good job of giving back the area that she needs to give back. You'll notice inside there's a photo also that helps explain it. She's got the planting list in there. I provided her with a planting list.
Yeah, I didn't copy the planting list, but I do have a copy of it here.
Where is this? And this,
That is the side over to, that is over here.
is that the 6.5 feet?
Yes.
Yes, the
That's
6.5.
6.5 feet?
There's an existing flower bed in the photographs that I have.
That's the right side.
Yeah, this is
left
the
side.
opposite
Oh.
side.
That's the left side. I just wondering, I think this, she's trying to say is the slope,
Oh, it is, yeah.
I'm guessing.
Wait, I thought the sidewalk and the planters lined up. I thought I
No,
remember-
side, Northern Boulevard's out here, sidewalk's right here. This, I think, is 10th Street, so that's 10th Street. And there's a heck of a banking right here that's kind of hid because it's all black, it doesn't show up very well. But she loses it when the snowplow comes in. She has a tough time on that side down there. It was one of the reasons for repaving this. The spot that she's shown that she's going to lose is out here against the wall of this deck. And then the complete other side, so against this wall right here.
Oh, I see what I'm missing. See the stairs?
Yes.
Go in front of this, they start here.
Yeah, and so that's why that measurement seems so
this is
small.
10.
Yeah,
And this is 6 feet from here to there.
exactly.
That makes sense now. She must hide the trash barrels behind that.
So my only concern here is that 17 by 5 area is, just picking up on your common concern, seems like an area that will quickly get turned into a path. Just get a lot of driveway materials shoved into it, and in 5 or 6 years, if one of us were to go down there, it would be driveway.
She indicated to me it's going to be landscaped with approved plantings.
Does that satisfy your concerns? Or do you think the plants are going to, what are you going to do about that, though? I mean,
Curving of some sort.
Well, curving is something that we like to see, but it's sort of a personal thing on the board so that we don't get mixed materials on Plum Island. Curving is something that DEP does not want to see. So if someone comes in and they want to draw it into a project, I'm more than happy to permit it, and I don't mind having it on Plum Island. But I don't think that the board might not want to impose it upon someone where it's not necessarily fully compliant when you start to read the new standards.
Okay.
And in this case here, it's really not for material separation because your dune system is out and away from it.
We encouraging more substantial planting. That would
You can-
hopefully discourage foot traffic through it.
You can encourage substantial planting, and you could request that some woody type material go in there, so it makes it a little more difficult to walk through, certainly.
Are these cobblestones?
looks like it.
Would that be acceptable?
It's the same thing, only different. Yeah, I would say cobblestone might be a little better because it's not a big bar, it's unconsolidated,
That's
so
what it is.
the water runs through, it doesn't reflect off it quite as
Sure.
badly, although it's a different surface. By the time we get back there, we have bigger issues.
Yeah. Dan, some thoughts about this?
I think it clears the hurdle that we put up. I don't know how functional that area is going to be relative to what was.
The only thing I can say about that is that the area that was taken, if you remember, half of it was being parked on anyway, so I don't think it had a lot of value. Yeah, I don't see an issue.
How do you feel about certain woody plantings in that area? The problem with the trees or use one like that?
You know, if you want to cobble border, they help, they're out there, what? You're out there 5 feet. So a cobble border will help if someone is apt to pull their nose of their car right over the plantings and break the edge of the blacktop. So if you want to put a cobble border there, I suppose it has some, if you want to suggest they could use a cobble border, it might have some benefit.
I was kind of wondering if, some kind of bollard with 6x6s in the corner or something, kind of define it visually. And I would favor the, like juniper or rose bushes or something.
So you want a couple of items out of the woody plant list, some ground cover, and then leave the option of a border up to the applicant.
Just to save you or a future conservation agent and the homeowner a headache down the line. Yeah.
Now, the only other question I have for the board is that we originally took this up under a request for determination because it was to repave an existing paving area. And that was under the assumption that potentially the blacktop would just get cut off and come back. Is the board good moving forward with this project, with this determination? And where I'm going with this is if they're not, we can take this through enforcement action.
Do you mind rephrasing that? Because I'm not quite sure I understood what you just said.
When this was first done, I told Karen that she needed a request for determination to re-blacktop her yard. Then it was discovered that she got a little carried away and took a little more than she was supposed to. She filed an RDA. Prior to that, though, she filed an RDA to leave the blacktop and to re-blacktop and leave it in place. If there was blacktop underneath there, that would have been okay, but it wasn't. So now the project's changed a little bit. We're going to take this area off. So instead of just re-blacktopping, she's doing these other two things. Are you satisfied that the request for the determination covers the new work or the work that is now taking place? Or should the board just go straight to enforcement action and tell Karen that she has to do the things that she's agreed to?
The RDA, the continued RDA is to retop.
Yeah, it means, yes, it means nothing to Karen. It's just how we take care of our process, that's all.
I mean, it sounds like technically we should be doing the latter.
I think technically we should be sending enforcement to cut those two areas out and go to this.
Is an RDA isn't built for this kind of.
I would agree. That's why I brought it up to the board.
Yeah.
It sounds like technically that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I agree.
In a very nice way.
Yes.
Yeah, because we already had the discussion, it's just at this point paperwork, it's not an actual
Yeah.
enforcement. It's
No.
just.
Yeah, again, we're telling her she has to do what she's agreed to do.
She has to do what she's telling us. She's going to.
Okay, so hold my hand through this.
All right.
Do I have a motion from the board?
Yes, I will make a motion, sorry.
No, it's okay, I was just going to interrupt, but you could keep
Don't
going.
interrupt, please.
Yeah, interrupt if we're not done yet, interrupt.
Should we be having a motion to deny the RDA?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to deny the RDA?
Go ahead, make up first.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
No, it's not, let's not call it a denial,
Okay.
let's call it a positive determination is really what we want to.
Right, yes, yeah.
We want a positive determination that another action needs to take place. And that action is going to be enforcement action. And enforcement action will enforce upon 35 Northern Boulevard the removal of 2 areas of blacktop, one 5 by 28 on the north section, one
6 by 28.
5 by, excuse me?
6 by 28.
6 by 28, I see that, okay.
It should, yeah, oh wait, so we also need to change that.
Yep. So let's get rid of the 5 feet up there.
Yep. Oh, yeah,
Oh, I don't know, you know what the
yeah,
5 is? The 5's from here to
From the
here.
edge of the steps, it's the edge of the
Yeah,
steps.
okay.
16 feet. Gotcha.
I got it.
All right, we're there.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the 6 by 28 portion to the north of the property and the 5 foot by 17 foot portion in front of the house labeled wall of death. Both those areas are to be replanted from the planting list, and the 5 by 17 area shall receive some woody material to discourage pedestrian access. That was a motion.
Second.
Could I have discussion?
Yes.
Enforcement action is going to happen within a certain time period, right? 30 days or something?
No, enforcement action has to happen 2 years after discovery or 3 years after change of hands. That's a statute of limitations.
But isn't it, look, you must do this and you must do it within 30 days?
No, we can give, no, your emergency cert is only good for 30 days, and you must do it within 30 days. The enforcement action is good for
Okay,
as long as we
different-
want to deal with the, different animal.
And I just think that, you know, there's not going to be much like planning.
Yeah, it might be easier to do it in the spring, I would agree, so, yeah, no. The only thing with the enforcement action, I think what you might be getting confused with, the enforcement action can be taken by one member of the board, but at the next regularly scheduled meeting, the rest of the board has to, I should say, a majority of the board has to sign that enforcement order. That's where the time comes in now.
It sounds like they've already kind of settled it themselves, but I just wanted to make sure, in terms of getting this cut out, she's at the mercy of the pavers who, for the most part, are all laid off for the winter now anyway. So in terms of getting it enforced within 30 days, if that's something that the board wanted to do, then that might be problematic.
I don't think that we want to put an impossible condition upon the applicant. That doesn't seem very fair. So I would certainly say that by May of next year, she should have someone in, should have a contract to do this work. And it should be before May. It should be done by May. Because if she waits till May, she's going to have trouble with her plantings. The plantings should go in just as soon as weather permits in the spring. Down Plum Island, really, they can go in almost all winter.
As part of this enforcement order, I think it would be helpful to all parties if we include some language saying some kind of pre-construction meeting, so that the contractors don't come in and make new problems, because they haven't been party to any of this conversation.
Oh, I do know.
Yeah. If you go down and hold their hands, it might make everything else simple. And then when she goes out and selects the contractors, she knows that one of the rules is these guys need to have a conversation with you, preferably on site. And then.
Good idea.
Okay.
Good idea. And everybody's on the same page, and we won't have a mistake. So, Annie, you all set?
Yeah.
So, an approved motion, but now we need to amend it to include a pre-construction review.
No, I don't think that all the conditions have to be in the motion. I think the motion's made and we can vote on the motion, or we can second the motion and vote on it. This will just be a condition I'll put into the enforcement. The second. Do we have a second already?
Yeah, it jumps on the second.
Jen, how are you doing?
We have a second, we're
We have
just-
Then the end, come on, discussion.
Okay.
So we pulled it back. So we have a seconded motion. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All those opposing? There you are, thank you very much.
Shall we leave this to the next one?
No, leave that right here,
Okay.
please.
All right,
Need to sign.
We have this part of it.
we can sign positively.
Ooh. Thumbs up good on the camera that way. You can see your sign. You can get some gas on that. Yes. No, I made a bunch of fuss. I did it today.
Do you want to use the stand?
I'm going to point out some things, and then maybe I'll split this up, but I'll leave it good.
Everybody sign, everything's good? That's your file. All right, next we have Kathleen and Alex Shuck of 64th Street. A continued NOI to build a duplex and install a septic system.
Evening, Mr. Chair. Mrs. Board. I had the right. Good evening. My name is Scott Cameron with Moore & Cameron, Route 66 Elm Street, Danvers, Massachusetts. I'm here on behalf of Alex and Kathy Shuck. This is a continued hearing. We met at the last meeting, we went over a few things we want to add to the plan. I'm going to go through those with you quickly. We want to rehash what we talked about for our proposal. I wanted to stand out really quick for you to see. Is anybody in the audience interested in this? One of the items that the commission had asked was to add some markers along the limit of work. So these would be set as a permanent marker where they can encroach, also be in the record, something that the commission and the organization could go back in the future and determine if there was anything done beyond that. So we specified these markers, 4x4 cedar posts, usually get a 10-quarter, cut it in half, and embed it so it sticks up a little bit. I'd asked if there was any sign that, state plaques or anything that the commission issues, and I was told no, so we didn't specify any plaques. So this would just be a marker that would match the plan that we'll set before we come in for a request for COC. We added a perimeter drain to collect roof downspouts and a dry well. Dry well has about a 250-gallon capacity. It's set in sand. It's above the groundwater table, so this should do a fine job of accepting, putting more roof runoff into the ground. And we did adjust the grading a little bit back here, and I just kind of highlighted in, we took the 70 contour and turned it into the foundation. Didn't like the stuff I changed. Didn't like how it kind of dropped down to the back of the house. I think there was a comment about the grading at one point during the hearing. So we just turned that in, raised the foundation, the first floor about 2.1 feet to account for that. So you didn't have the situation where the yard turned it down to the house, so it'll be level when they walk out. It didn't change the grading going out. It just filled it in from here to the house, the proposed house. That's it.
Those are the things we talked about last month, so I don't have any issues, any other issues for the applicant unless someone else will move those.
Just to go over some of the details. So you've got, 6 signs you put up?
Just
posts,
posts, yeah.
squares?
Yep, the squares.
Okay.
Yep.
And what's the spacing on those? Is that
20, I believe they're about 25 feet on
Yeah,
side.
okay. And then the idea with the shrub plantings is sort of what, like a double fence kind of thing? Like you do a vegetative fence and behind them you're putting in the...
Markers are they're just something that will be there longer. The plants are going to grow. These will be in the ground, and then cedar, they'll last, they should be there for 20 plus years anyways. It's just to provide some sort of physical marker. Landscaping changes, people swap out plants.
Right.
So these will be a little different, and if somebody sees them, they're going to wonder, why is that there? You know, as opposed to a plant which might just look like a hedge.
Right, right. So, and this isn't a real criticism, but it is a question. And, you know, if we put up the vegetation and then the signs that are facing the house, you know, theoretically you're supposed to read them from the property, arguably, and most of them are then sort of blocked out.
Well, there's no sign. The
Sorry, the conservation marker.
Yeah, it's just a marker. So if they're in their landscaping, they're going to bump into them. They're probably going to, you know, they are just behind the plants.
Okay, so now I'm following. There's not
There's no
cedar
sign.
post with something on it. It's just a cedar post.
If you as a policy had a plaque that you issued to everybody, I would say let's put that on there. But I don't want to put on something and it's just these people that have it. So I'm just suggesting we put in the markers.
A lack of consistency, but at the same time, there's always a first. You know, it's.
Next
I don't know.
application.
I'll let you guys chew on that for a second, see what you want to do. But then, so, the 250 gallon dry well, my math is awful. What's that worth? Is that worth like a day of 1 inch rain? Is that?
It's about 1 inch, but it's sand, so anything that goes into it, it's going to be rapidly draining into the soil. So we didn't even factor in, you know, infiltration that's going to occur. So it's a small dry well. It's intended to get, you know, frankly, for something this small, we wouldn't typically do any drainage. It's exempt from the stormwater management handbook standards. This is just a little extra. I like it. The developer likes it because you can kind of hide the downspouts getting into the ground and over. Now what happens is if that does fill up, it's just going to come back out the pipe that receives the downspout.
Okay.
So it just tops over,
Okay.
like it would normally anyways.
Right, but it's, in manner of speaking, it's a, like you said, it's like a day of one, it's a 1 inch.
Yeah, it's going to pick up all your small and frequent storm events.
You said ready, so is it?
Yeah, yep, same.
It'll disappear.
Yeah. And I've done work here and other homes in the neighborhood too. It's all pretty consistent sand.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess anybody have any thoughts or opinions about the posts or the signs, et cetera?
I mean, I think we should, well, this is gonna happen again, we need to develop the sign.
Yeah.
We don't have them now, so. Can't do that.
I would suggest, only because this just happened to me in another community, we got the COC ready to go, and the commission, because everybody's busy, failed to produce the signs that we were told to put on, and we missed a closing as a result. But what I would suggest is not put a condition on this, but if you have them ready when we come in for the COC, maybe make it on the file. I think it's easy enough to pass them out and say, but tack these on. They're little aluminum signs usually.
Yeah, supposed to be there.
Are there any other thoughts, or I'm ready to entertain it? You ready for a motion?
Right, you have more issues, or
No.
any unresolved issues?
No, it's nitpicking really. It's just, I'm still thinking about, so let's say now we're gonna find some signs, we're gonna put them on the posts. I'm just thinking, you know, if they face right into the bushes, right, you're not gonna see them. But
The idea is
Yeah.
that if they want to do landscaping, they're gonna bump into those posts.
Right.
We don't want to like ruin their view having these posts that they have to
Exactly.
stare at all the time.
right,
So-
so are they tucked away in a nice way? Are they tucked away, we easily forget about them, and I'm just sort of,
Well,
it's fine.
we kind of want them to forget about it until they think about doing landscaping and then they see it.
It's a fair point.
Yeah. So I think that's the intent, that would make everybody happy.
Yeah, and then you got the two bookends out on the edges,
Right.
yeah. Cool, sounds like a plan.
Move to approve?
Oh, sorry. Are there any butters or anybody else would like to speak? I'm going to close the public hearing. Now take a motion. Sorry.
used to it.
Move to approve as presented.
These guys are all laughing, they're gonna have their turn too.
I
So
know.
don't worry.
True.
They didn't tell me now.
Yeah.
I'll say.
All those, having a motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Maybe
Thanksgiving.
Same here.
Thank you.
Yeah, take that back. Yeah, we need too many. I'll club this on the table and I'll color it tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know. Right, run through the town of Newbury, just keep over doing this. All right, well, while you're signing the Shuck NOI, the town of Newbury continued NOI to improve the right-of-way, construct an emergency access driveway, are going to get a continuation, ask for continuation, but Doug wants to fill us
Yeah,
in.
the town is still working with the biologist to get plantings down in there and to come up with some mitigation for that so that we can satisfy DEP. So we should see that in here in the December meeting.
Anybody else here in the crowd? In that case, I will look for a motion to continue. Motion to continue.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No. Folder? Sorry, Jeff. All right, next we have Mark Petros of 8 12th Street. Continued NOI to demolish the existing single-family home and construct a new single-family home on piles. Good evening. Good evening, how are you?
For the record, my name is Matt Steiner from Millennium Engineering. I'm here representing the applicant. If you recall, this particular application went before the commission at their last public hearing. And one of the major reasons we had to continue it, we had a few edits that the commission had requested, but also we were waiting on the DEP file number. I spoke with Doug earlier today in the idea that we would be continuing because we were still waiting for a DEP file number, and wouldn't you know it, 6:30 this evening I looked and they issued it after I left the office. So we are prepared to move forward. So a DEP file number has been issued. The plan you have before you tonight is the revised plan based on the comments that the commission had. Some of the things that the commission had requested was some additional plantings for some mitigation for the work being done on the dune, as well as there was a stone area proposed underneath the structure that we had stopped just after the parking spaces, and it didn't really provide for stone to the stairwell on the side of the home, so we extended the stone further under the structure and over to the stairwell. The commission had also asked us to clarify a note we had on there indicating that we would be repairing the stone wall. So we added some additional notes at the bottom of the page to indicate that it's kind of superficial work. It's filling the crack, it's fascia stone that's going to be added to it just to improve the look of the wall. We're not replacing or doing any major structural repairs to this wall. We also added a proposed air conditioning unit on the side of the dwelling, as well as a buried propane tank to replace the 2 tanks that are there on site today. And then there was a note that the DEP indicated that the mitigation that we proposed was not sufficient. With Doug's assistance, we went out and measured the interior of the foundation, determined the cubic volume of sand that we needed to replace the foundation hole that's there. It's minimal, it's a very small crawl space that's there, but we were able to indicate that once the structure is removed and that dune quality sand is used to replace that foundation hole, that approximately 1,200 square feet, I think it's 1,250 cubic feet of dune sand would be used to fill in that hole and act as replication or mitigation towards the activity being proposed. DEP, most of the comments were addressed by a simple comment indicating that everything they were asking for was already on the plan and that they just needed to look at it.
Yeah, I know enough about propane to get in trouble. But I'm wondering whether you could put that big a tank that close to the house. I know it's going to be buried, but even at that, I'm just wondering if it can go that close to the house. If it can, where would you put it?
Well, we'd have to work with the propane distributor, the person who's going to come in and do the install, to find out what the appropriate place would be. This is really the only open yard area other than the opposite side of the dwelling where the gravel area is now. So if need be, you know, it could be moved from this side to the other side into that gravel area, where they're gonna be doing a little bit of mitigation there anyways. That gravel's gonna come out and they're gonna do some vegetative plantings in there, so they could, obviously, before they do that planting, do the install in that same location. It would reduce the total impacts, because we'd be putting it in an area that's already being impacted, if that were the case.
Is the lady gonna get to keep her tree?
She still wants to keep her tree. I'm still recommending that we leave it as proposed to be coming out. I know my wife, and I know she'll back into it 100 times.
Okay. It says over here, plantings shall be approved by the Conservation Commission agent prior to planting. That won't happen. If it's not defined on the plan, what I will have you do is bring you back in under other business to approve the planting plan when you're ready to do it.
Okay.
That way I don't get in a back and forth myself with the applicant is what's right, what isn't. We'll do that as a board.
We have a list of approved plantings that other communities use that are for this type of location as well. We can definitely pick some stuff off there that would be appropriate for this dune community for plantings, and we can come back in with a list of plantings that they intend to use.
Okay. The only other thing, Matt, is elevations. Now, I noticed the note up here, go look at the building permit application, and it seems as though I found it online once, but I couldn't find it this time around. And when I did, it seemed like I didn't have what was underneath here. What am I looking at when I look under here?
So on the existing condition side here, what we have is the elevations shown here, 5.2 at all the corners. So when this goes before the building inspector, and it likely will go to the zoning board as well, they'll be able to calculate the average grade around this structure and then determine the height of the building. So the note here really is relative to zoning requirements to show that meets. It's not for conservation so much as this plan will be used also for zoning approval as well. The intention here is to, again, fill in the foundation hole to the same elevation as the adjacent grades on either side of the structure, and to not change the overall grading or characteristics of the side build.
When I'm talking about elevations, though, I know that you've made a comment in here about keeping it up off the ground, but I'm talking about the elevations of the structure, the ground, and anything you've got hanging under there. Is there any hung basement? Is there any storage under there? What's
profile view.
Yeah, what's underneath here?
Right now it's wide open. The only thing under the structure is the utility chase.
Oh, okay.
And then the piles that are shown here, there is no intention for any type of lattice work or
Nothing
anything.
underneath there. And what's your first floor elevation?
First floor elevation here, and low structural member at 15, so first floor would be about 2 feet above that. Flood out here is at 13.
10 and you're 13. Okay.
So we're 2 feet above flood. I believe it's a
And
velocity.
you're 9 here, so you got plenty. Okay, all right. I don't need anything else in that.
Is there anybody else on the board who has any questions or comments?
Is this a one-story house?
Currently.
No, will it be?
The proposed?
Yeah.
I believe it's a 2-story.
So the new house will be pretty much the ceiling of the old house?
The bottom of the house?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it's going to be, right now, again, at the street level, we're at elevation 6, 7, 8, so the front of the structure here is at about 6, and the proposed lowest part of the steel frame is going to be at 15, so we're 9 feet out of the ground.
15s. Asphalt, correct?
Yeah.
Plenty of headroom.
So I said 13 in the flood. I actually think I'm off on that. The other flood is listed over here. No, it's at 13. So the intention here was to have it to be as low as we can, but knowing full well they intend to park under it. If you go in there with a vehicle with some type of a hatchback, there's going to need to be the headroom for that hatchback to open up. So it's actually higher than it needs to be in order to make it usable for parking.
Is this is that right?
To be relocated.
Yeah, they can't remove it.
That's on there.
The sewer line shown on there, it'll be just off the sewer line. We don't specify event location.
I think there was a note on here that said either of the utilities may need to be relocated or rebuilt if they're inadequate, or I think there was a note, something like that.
It's effectively it's venting the city sewer, where normally we come out the stack vent. I think the city doesn't, want to deal with Woodhouse and have the appropriate venting on them, so they install the vent on the outside.
There's one for, each pit has one for each home, so they're pretty redundant.
Yeah.
You only need one per pit, but they were afraid that a kid would stuff a baseball up one or something stupid, or, what's going to happen, so.
Or any other comments from the board?
Just one.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So the revegetation will be approved, is 8 individuals, is that right? Or is it a circle, is like a clump of things?
The circle is indicating of a proposed vegetative location, but the actual species of the plant will dictate how many will get installed in there. So once we get it approved by Doug, it may end up being that there's more, and that's just a line of vegetation that's proposed along there to replicate. So we're going to vegetate basically starting from here to here with whatever species is eventually.
It's more of a dotted line than a discrete. Okay, correct. Thanks.
Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak on this case, any of others? Then I would look for a motion from the board. I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'll look for a motion from the board to approve the plans. There was one, with the condition that they will come back in with a planting list under other business. So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're welcome.
This is yours. Next, we have Susan and Richard Cementelli, 952nd Street, we continue the NOI to tear down an existing single-family home and construct a new single-family home.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the record, I'm Michael Seacamp, Environmental Consultant. I'm here tonight to follow up on our last meeting regarding the proposed project at 952nd Street. Tear down a house and build another. There were several items that the commission was for clarification and further information on at the last meeting. We revised the plan. We also revised the project description and added more details on the planting plan. We added the location of the propane tanks. I'm just reading off my list that I took at the last meeting. So that's on the plan. If anybody would like another, I have another copy if you'd like to see it.
Just for the number of the frame.
And so we're showing the propane tanks. We provided a piling plan, and we're showing where the pilings are on the overall plan, and they correspond to the piling plan that was prepared by Mr. Hughes, Don Hughes, that is, and he will be the contractor on the site. We also show the stair touchdowns. That was an issue that the commission had, the concrete pads. We reduced the size of the proposed parking area down to two sites, two locations, and the total will be 9 feet by 18 feet. We're showing the utility connections to the street. And we have a listing of the alteration and addition of
the beach grass areas in the upper right, just below the zoning table, if you see what we're proposing. So there will be a disturbance to beach grass because of moving the house, but then we will be adding additional areas of beach grass. So the net gain will be 305 square feet will be the additional. The disturbed is 340 square feet, so it's a total of 645 that will be replaced. And we will be replacing it with 640 plugs of Ammophila vervila. It's the village part that I often get wrong, but yeah, vervila. So that's the Latin name for beach grass. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that the commission might. Oh, by the way, I sent this information to DEP. I see they had not issued a file number. However, I do have the receipt, and they received it on the 15th, which was last Thursday. So they've had time. I explained where it was, and it's on their site, in their radar, but so I don't know who the analyst is for that. But they had some of the same issues that they had.
We can leave that up to you. Are you suggesting that we either close or don't close tonight, or?
We'd be happy if you closed. I don't see where they would not be happy with what we submitted. So.
Yeah, this one's just.
Yeah, now.
Yeah, we had the.
Oh, you had the opening?
Yeah, I was like, I don't see any of this.
Yeah.
It's going to be primarily.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's the information on the beach grass. Propane tanks. That's their touchdown.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, we're also showing the utility chase as well. We added that to the plan.
Oh, yes. So this might be the right of way of the fence. I don't know where that is.
Doug, do you have anything?
I don't have any other questions or concerns on this.
I just have one question. Just the previous days up on Plum Island, they had planned for, the
sand film?
Yeah, the sand film.
Vacancy?
That's the only day, they've noticed is.
I'm sorry, what's the issue?
So where the foundation is now, of the old house that's going to be torn down, a plan for the sand.
It'll just be,
replacement.
it's my understanding there's no foundation under it. It's
Okay.
just on concrete pilings from what I can tell.
Okay.
So it'll just be raked out, and in the areas that we're going to reclaim from lawn, we're going to be raking up the turf grass and planting the beach grass and the native sand.
Yeah.
Good question.
All the plantings are American beach grass?
Yes, that's what we're going to be doing. That's what you said.
Just on that point, I'm looking at this and a point of confusion perhaps, not necessarily, but where there's turf grass versus where there's beach grass. So are these sections in the revegetation area, and it says grass over here, and then sand and grass over there, and then existing beach grass. And so, to my eye, I don't know who else is going to utilize this. If they're expecting turf grass, if they read grass as being turf grass, just might be an edit.
It's currently turf grass,
Okay.
and it'll continue to be
This
turf
one over
grass,
here?
those areas.
Is that one turf grass in the property? Is that
yes.
one turf grass?
Well, as far as I know,
Okay.
but it's not part of the project.
Okay.
But these areas are the ones that are going to be additional beach grass.
Okay.
This is currently beach grass.
No, that's great. That just
Yeah.
means that, my potential for misunderstanding doesn't matter because it's exactly the right understanding. Problem solved.
Okay.
Do you envision there needs to be any, removal of organic soil and additional sand in those areas? You're going to plant beach grass, or is it
We would be
basically
adding-
native sand?
No, I don't expect that there'll be any need for additional enhancement of the sand. The beach grass that will be, the turf grass that will be removed will obviously have some topsoil that I imagine people have brought in over the years, and that'll get removed. And you can make that a condition on the order.
You try and get as much of that
Yeah.
organic out of there as you
Right.
can. You'll be doing your beach
Yeah.
grass a favor.
Right. Keep the weeds out.
Yeah.
So one more, just, Doug, this is really a question for you. Does there need to be a designated stockpile workspace with all this beach grass going on and revegetation? And do we want to trust the people involved that they won't step on the things that just got rented?
Well, those things, I would imagine, usually the last thing that's done to those plantings, they kind of paint their way out of the closet, not into it, you know?
Right.
So my guess would be that they would put those in last. But even if they don't, it's really on them, because they're going to call up for a certificate of compliance, and one of us will go down there and take a look, and that beach grass is either successful and it's growing, or it's been trumped all over one or the other.
And with all the intricacies of working down there, you're not worried about this thing, a stockpile here and a pile.
In this particular site, it's flat. The two areas that they're talking about, they're going to revegetate those. The other areas have turf grass on them. If they ruin their turf grass down there and they have to put dune grass in, that's a plus for us. So I guess in this particular case, it's a flat area. I don't think there's any concern with where they stockpile or where they don't.
Okay.
There's nothing else from the board before I close the hearing. To the audience, any abutters or other comments on this?
I just have a question. We're the neighbors at 52nd Street, and I think you've answered all the questions nicely that we had from the last time. How do I get a copy of the updated plans?
You just need to, we can provide you with a
Okay.
copy. You'll have to pay for it, a few cents, but if you want to come into town hall and get a copy of it, it's a public record. You're
Okay.
welcome to a copy.
And we had questions the last time about the height of the building, and that's a zoning board.
That is really a zoning question, yes.
Okay.
You can have this copy.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Save me some money.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right, any further comments? I'll look back to the board. I'll close the public hearing and look back to the board for a motion. Do a motion to accept? Sounds like we.
I'll second it.
Yeah. And there may be some.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you.
We're talking about the back door.
It's okay. Well, it will take a few days to put out the order of conditions anyway, so if the members have any suggestions, they can just send them.
Thank you. Moving to Jack and McKenna of 11 Riverside, which continued NOI to replace the deck platform, conduct landscape work, and after the fact approval for repairs to an existing revetment. This is going to be continued to the next
It
meeting.
is, we asked them for some additional information that they did not get to us in time, so it was agreed upon, and I've already placed it in file, as a matter of fact, a request for a continuance.
So, motion to continue.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. It's really fantastic. All right, Riverfront Marine, NOI to renovate and expand an existing pier 160 square feet. Doug?
Also, DEP has asked for a lot of additional information on this one when they sent back their correspondence, so I heard from the engineer today, and he's preparing a response to DEP and asked for continuance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Karen Abbott, 22 Columbia Way, RDA to rebuild and restore garage and porch damaged by fire. Hi, Ms. Abbott, how are you?
Just one of the same footprint, there's the badge.
Before you get started, I think we need to get your tear sheet.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Just using the same footprint, don't want to go out, just want to replace what was damaged.
Build it over the top of it.
Yes, without the foundations.
And just to remind the board, Karen, what's all around the outside edge of this?
Okay, now I've got a sheet is coming off on this, but just a driveway on 3 sides of this driveway. So there's no doing, there's no beach grass.
I know the board also, the application, they provided some pictures.
Are you giving the outside?
I don't, this is it's a simple project, it's, the foundation's in place, the area around it is not a particularly sensitive area when it comes to Plum Island, it just happens to be on the very beach, so.
Anybody else?
So, what's going on with how much is the roof you've taken out? The whole thing?
Just only the sunroom, not the house.
No,
Just-
sorry, I mean because it looks from
Oh,
the
the
boarding
deck,
up.
the deck
Yeah.
is, no, the deck is here and it's on top of the garage.
So it's a deck rather than a
Yes,
roof?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So was the fire here?
There was, I think the car was the issue. I think they told the car to Chicago, why else would they do that? No, they never officially told me, but it was the car, I think that it melted, they told it to Chicago, so of course it has to be, but that was where the issue initially was, it started the fire, and then it's just smoke damage on top of that.
This side can't be this side.
Yes, it is.
Oh.
No, wait a minute. No, it's not. It's this side right here.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Turn. This right here. This side is looking towards the. Here's this over here is here. And this is the side right here.
Well, anyway, where I was gonna just
Anyway,
go.
the
it
point
was,
is, it's a rubber
You know,
roof.
in the manner of speaking, since you've had, an issue and you're gonna rebuild anything, is there any problem or anything that we could sort of look or solve? Like, do you have any runoff issues or any kind of things that you're gonna change in the construction?
No, you're just replacing what was
It was there for years, so
That
it's,
was it.
yeah, it's a.
The foundation is still.
Still intact, yes.
Didn't get hurt by the fire.
Just he knows how stuff works. If you needed advice on roof,
Okay.
replacing flat surfaces.
No, it's just a deck. It's not.
Anything else from the board? No. Is there anybody in the audience, abutters who'd like to speak? Go ahead.
I think they'd like it fixed.
Sure. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing then, and look for a motion.
Motion to approve the RDA.
Second.
Negative determination, right?
Negative determination on the RDA.
Just check.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
You're welcome.
Comments, have a good night.
A negative determination is a good thing. It means that you're not going to remove, fill, dredge, or alter, so you don't need to go on and file a notice of intent. A positive determination would mean that you would need a more process, additional process of some sort.
Next, we have Ann Uppington from 7 West Street, an RDA for Vista Pool to improve views of the Parker River.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Good, thank you. I also have to ask you for a tear sheet or notice.
I have to bring it in tomorrow. I got
Enough copies in file.
There we go. Perfect.
We witnessed it, so we're okay.
We're good, thank you.
It's okay. It's just I'm trying to renew what's called a viewing easement, on just down the road on River Road and West Street. My neighbours have a viewing easement over a field I have on River Road, which governs quite well. And so I did a pruning 3 years ago, and now it's time to renew it. It's got, I think it's 25 feet, perhaps towards 30 feet, just to prune. To give them an opening of the river.
Oh, I see. I don't know what you had down for your dimension. I think it was 82 feet is what you had for the dimension. But you might get
30.
But the vista pruning that you're talking about, there is the ability in the Wetlands Protection Act, if you stay more than 50 feet from the river, or you do little more than create a pathway, a walking pathway down to it, that you're exempt. But this is not, this wouldn't be under the exemption for that. This is different than that. You're right down on the river's edge, pretty much, pruning out some material. And it is relative to a viewing easement that the people across the street obtained from the previous owners, so.
Who owned my house they sold a building with a viewing easement.
So it's a little bit of a difficult situation that they have a viewing easement on someone else's property, and the viewing easement gives them the right to see the river at all times, yet the vegetation is within a resource area that needs the permission of the Conservation Commission to provide the relief.
That's do you know, in your long career of legal stacking, like what comes? I assume the WPA gets precedent over an easement, or is that the other way around?
No, you would think that the WPA would get a precedent over the easement. The easement is granted, I guess, provided you could do those things. That's a good question. I don't know. You know, if the judge told me to cut the stuff down, I'd cut the stuff down. If he told me to leave it, it'd stay. So, you know, I don't really know. I haven't pushed it that far, and so far, it gets a little contentious now and then between the abutters, but so far they've been able to, you know, make some sense of it and handle it okay, and they have had permission to do this in the past and didn't get too carried away with it. Both parties seem to keep a pretty good eye on it.
And so this in front of us is the property that needs to be cleared, but it's being cleared on behalf of another property.
Correct.
Yes, that sums it up well.
Yes, you got it.
All right, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Moving on.
And is it exactly the same as what was done before, or is it a different amount of activity?
It's exactly, she took her old application and copied it.
Seems reasonable.
Who's gonna do the work?
I don't know, who did the, you had someone do the work.
A local landscaper,
Yeah.
Stephen Murphy, but yeah, he and I did it together.
Okay.
So this one issue that I can see perhaps is having, but again, I'm not an arborist of any sort, but repeated cutting and lopping and limbing in the same spot, you know, at just enough time to let the trees grow back, you cut it down again, just enough time to let the trees grow back, you cut it down again. Will that be bad for the trees?
That doesn't seem to be taking place, and it's more of a vista pruning. They're not taking down whole trees, they'll be
No, I
taking
mean
down.
the limbing of, you know, like, you know, you end up with that fork shaping of the tree. Or...
Different things happen. It's more bushes. It's like there's quite a lot of buckthorn there.
Oh, get rid of it.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Done. You can have all of it.
Yeah, I've got burning bush, which is another invasive.
Oh, no, yeah, no, this should be like a restoration NOI. Like.
Yeah.
Get carried away now.
Yeah, but I've got lovely ferns and things like that, and mosses, all sorts of mosses there.
Those are good. I like those.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
British.
It's a lovely bit of the river, actually.
Nothing, I'm loving this.
Yeah.
It's great.
So like,
You're in control.
I'm gonna let it keep going. Are there any other concerns, comments, thoughts from the board about this?
yeah, we should expand her, let her have as much as she wants. Anything.
If she's gonna call you sweetie, I'm gonna sit here all night. I'm gonna be honest.
Right now, the two parties seem to work it out well enough that they're kind of the yin yang, and it works well, and they control this thing. It's sort of,
Well, Doug worked out what areas should be cleared to satisfy them, and they're happy with that. We've got beavers too, so they help out a bit.
I heard them.
And we got lots of trees down last winter too.
So many trees came down last winter.
Yeah, that's in a different area, just so you know. So,
Well, hearing nothing else from the board and not really seeing any other members of the public, I'm gonna go ahead and close this hearing and look for a motion to, and for a negative determination on the RDA.
This is a good thing, I move for negative determination.
All those in favor?
Aye.
we gotta get, did someone second?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And how long do I have it for again?
3 years.
And then I have to come back and see you again?
Yeah, unfortunately, an RDA is not renewable. You can't extend an RDA, so yeah, you will have to come back and see us all again.
Oh, that's not.
It's just a nice check-in that we're all upright.
There you go.
You know?
Bring cookies.
There you
What
go.
did you say, David?
Bring cookies.
Bring cookies, there you go.
Thanks a lot. Do you want a newspaper sheet?
Yeah, we should, when you don't have to, when you come by, bring it with you. We have the confirmation that you placed it, so we're all set with that, but we'll put it in the file when you can get it
I'll
to
bring
us.
it to.
Okay, thank you.
You're open tomorrow?
We are,
Yeah, I'll see you then.
He will not, I will not be there, but somebody else will take it.
someone will be there.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Is there an application down there for this?
I don't.
Goes back this way? Okay. I'm just trying to get them back in the file, that's all.
We have the signature.
It should be in.
Oh, sorry.
It came with it. Right? You have it
Oh,
in hand.
sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got messed up. I only need Form 1.
It's all right.
Yeah. I was wondering why you were sitting here still. All right. Doug Palumbo, in Hanover, an RDA to abandon a failing septic system and install a new municipal sewer connection. That is back.
Back again.
Tear sheet. Thank you, sir.
So, excuse me, what's a tear sheet?
It is the article out of the newspaper. It's the legal ad, because that's what it is.
It's what the.
Tear it
When they tear the whole page out, your little ad's about this big, they tear the page out and they send you the page, and it's called a tear sheet.
The newspaper does,
Yeah.
So you have the date and everything on when it was in.
which we don't actually get very often.
Yeah.
So there's actually a legal ads website you can go to, which is what I turn in, is the legal ad confirmation from the website that shows the date it was run and lists the ad. But normally the newspaper does, they tear the whole page out and they send it to you as confirmation that it was actually posted.
This is my third town being involved with the COMCOM, and I've never heard that term before. And I was a paper boy.
Welcome to Northern Mass.
Yeah, I guess.
Now I know. That's my education for the night.
No. So the application before you tonight is for Mr. Palumbo, who has an existing failing septic system for his commercial property. Sorry, mixed-use property, has some residential units on the second floor and commercial on the first floor. If you're familiar with Hanover Street, when you cross over the railroad tracks are right here. It's the first property immediately on the right as you're heading towards the school.
The yellow one.
It's a multicolored structure they have.
Going from one to one A.
Yeah. So it is an existing failing septic system. We engaged the services of West Environmental, Mark West, to do a wetland delineation for us. As you see here on the plan, you have a wetland line here for a BBW, as well as we brought in, because the additional resource area is across the other side of the railroad tracks, we brought in an aerial image and got the location of the bank of the river over there and offset the 200-foot, which just barely strikes the edge of the property here, this corner. That's the 200-foot riparian zone.
That's for the Little River?
That's for the Little River, which I was unaware of the name, and Doug said, "Oh, the Little River." I said, "Yeah, the little one over there." He goes, "No, that's the name." So we originally started preparing this as a full notice of intent, and after speaking with Doug and considering the amount of work that's being done is all temporary in nature, it just barely strikes the edge of the 200-foot riparian zone, and most of the work is in buffer zone to BBW, which is already disturbed. It's a lawn, it's maintained. We thought it appropriate to come to the commission with a request for determination for the installation of E1 sewer pump here. So we dug up at the back of the building with a hand shovel the pipes as they exit the building. We got elevations on those pipes, and we calculated and designed a gravity-fed sewer line that wraps around the side, comes out to the front, and ties into an E1 pump system here, which then pumps up into the manhole here with a clean out for the municipally owned sewer line that feeds the school down here. We went to, the applicant went to the Newbury Sewer Commission and got permission for the tie-in, so we do have a confirmation from them by email that they received permission to do the tie-in from the city of Newburyport, and we're here tonight requesting permission to do the work that's within the buffer zone in order to accomplish that tie-in.
So we're going from a failed system to plugging into the town.
Plug it into Newburyport, yeah.
Newbury.
Yes.
Seems like, sounds all good to me.
Yeah, you know, you've got a clay neighborhood, you've got poor soils, so, yeah, I think it's a good thing. You know, he's right here next to the river, get that system out of the backyard.
There's a lot of things that environmentally are a good idea about fixing this. This is also in the ACEC, because the Parker River ACEC, they're very critical area that they're worried about, actually extends up from the Little River going right along the railroad track. So even though we're quite far away from the bulk of the ACEC, there is a finger that comes up, and so we want to make sure for BBW purposes, for riverfront purposes, for ACEC purposes, that we get this taken care of as quickly as possible and not have the continued failed system. It was actually an order, I believe, from the Board of Health that told them they had to fix this because they actually were having breakup, bubbling up, so they wanted it corrected right away.
I would be very surprised when we start doing our stormwater stuff and start testing all our outflows if around this neighborhood we find that we have problems. It wouldn't surprise me at all for the soils we got there. So the more we can get this accomplished, the better off we are.
Just for my own education, what happens if that pump fails to get it out?
So as with most septic
Just being
systems,
so close to the river and stuff like that,
as with most septic systems, not just this type of pump
Yeah.
system, but even with full septic systems, the pump unit is equipped with an alarm, and it has a certain amount of volume capacity within it to continue to receive waste until the pump can be replaced if the pump were to say burn out. So there will be an alarm panel that's installed either on the face of the building or inside the building somewhere, and when the alarm activates, they'll get a visual light that blinks as well as a loud audible buzzer noise, so they know there's an issue and they have to do maintenance.
And on the same line, is there like a backflow prevention kind of?
Yes, because this is pumping out into, well, yeah, I guess it depends. I don't want to say yes for sure because there's very little information on the city sewer out there as far as what's there that nobody really knows. We have a record location of it, and when you go out there, there's no manhole where they say there's a manhole. We expect it's been paved over. So we don't really know. We weren't able to open it, but if this was a force main system where the line in the road is under pressure at all times, there would be a backflow preventer that would prevent any of the waste from the city sewer line from coming back into the property. If it's a gravity-fed system, there's still typically some type of a backflow preventer, but it's a different mechanism.
And that's all on the city line that you're talking about?
That's the line that goes out to the city.
Oh, so, okay. So the line that you're talking about installing would end up with something connected?
So coming from here out to here, somewhere between here and here, they would put a backflow preventer, and typically it's usually in the actual wet well of the clean out here.
Okay.
It would be a backflow preventer, so that way if there was ever an issue out here, over pressurization of the line, it couldn't go back into.
And then So as that work's being done, right, so I assume there's gonna be excavation on property, right?
Trench,
Right. I don't know how to ask the question. Feel free, anybody, to, change my language. But will there be, because I don't, expect that the ground will retain its levelness, you will either sink a little bit or rise a little bit, the way that when we backfill.
Sure.
Will that have any contribution to any kind of off-site flow? Like, where is the story with all the other stuff on the site, and if now we end up with a trench that's gonna shoot the water in a certain direction?
Well, the good news here is we're bounded around us by marsh and by railroad tracks, so the flow, if you're talking like surface flow, not waste flow, but surface
Right.
flow like rain, it can't go anywhere. Currently, the drainage as it is now comes off the road, hits the pavement, goes down into this grass area and drains this way here out towards the wetlands.
Okay.
So all the surface water is going this way anyways, right where the trench would be.
So we wouldn't make any new lines?
We wouldn't be making any new hydraulic connection or redirecting any surface water onto any abutting property that doesn't already currently go in that direction.
Thanks for understanding where I was trying to go with that.
Yep.
Come on.
Come on. All right. It sounds like I have a motion to approve the plans as presented. Is there any, oh, sorry. No public, close the public hearing. It sounds like we have a motion to approve the plans as presented. I need a second.
Second.
So, all right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
I feel like, do I have to say that for now and sake or no? You can say whatever you want. Dan has been criticizing me this whole time for going too small, so I don't know.
I think you
One more
do
time,
great.
check on the plans I gave with
Oh,
the original.
Okay,
Sorry, go ahead.
Look it over.
Then
Okay, you got it.
There's a reason for that.
Well, yeah, okay.
Then your pacing's perfect.
That's because you got to talk a lot.
It's good.
You fell into my trap.
You gave all the rope you needed for that.
Guy's like, no, it wasn't hard. Oh, shoot, this is my video.
Yeah, you remember that.
Yeah, I keep on forgetting that, like every month. Get at least.
You need to wear, a suit.
Don't worry, sweetie. That was amazing. That was you, right? All right. Certificates of compliance, Michael O'Hara, 29 Southern Boulevard. Doug, you were gonna go today.
Michael O'Hara has asked to withdraw his request, and he's going to resubmit it.
Okay. Nothing we have to do there? Okay.
Simple as that. I don't think he decided at the last minute he wasn't quite ready, so.
Like the paperwork, or there's?
No, I think like the site.
Okay.
We'll find out next week, next month. Next month, I imagine he'll be back, so.
Hopefully Mr. Walcott Downey can join us next month.
Yes, I would like to have him come in, he's a decent guy, so.
I'm always
What was
interested.
your subject of his?
What he did is he hung out with Ray Walton the first time. They really pushed the Army Corps of Engineers for repair of the South Jetty, and when they had the erosion down there, I think sometime around the mid-70s, 74 to 80, around that time there, they were active. And he understands some of what makes Plum Island work, and he just wants to make sure he passes that information along and that we don't forget it and that it doesn't get lost. And yeah, so we're going to have him in and let him give us that information, tell us that.
Didn't coach me up on how to do this part, but I'm gonna try and remember. Now I'm going to move to adjourn the meeting.
Close the public hearing.
Oh,
Wait, yeah.
I wanted to float an idea in regards to the retiring and the looping of the chairmanship here thing, because I assume that you will be staying on as a member, right? For a certain amount of time, for a good while.
I will still be a member and the agent.
And so, is there, and we've got some new membership kicking in here, you've got a fair number of people.
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, right? Is there anything else that we can do in this sort of transitional period that might help in like, what I'm thinking is like, I've read lots of orders and conditions, and I know what you're doing, but I don't know if these guys understand what's in an OOC, right? And so maybe as you write them up, maybe you email them out, and so then when the transition comes and the new agent comes into play, you've got a standard in play where, the last few meetings you've been emailing out the OOC or whatever filing documents or relevant documents. And so the new person comes into play, they pick up that habit. And so then they're sending out their order conditions in there, et cetera, et cetera. You get the idea. You get those.
Yeah, but I'll tell you that it's I won't say it's rare. It's not a common occurrence that I have an order that's added to what I send out on a regular basis. I have a generic order of conditions that has a bunch of check boxes down it. Most of them are checked. One of them might be something about in perpetuity. So if you have one you want to put in perpetuity, I just copy, paste the check mark, put what condition will stay in perpetuity. So that document pretty much stays the same all the time. There might be one condition that you guys, or that we come up with for an order that is not on that pretty much comprehensive standard order. It talks about trashing your material, it talks about your silt fence, and it talks about all the change. Yeah, so if the board wants to go on to the, no, I don't think we have it on our website. But I can bring some to the meeting. I can bring some copies of our generic orders. And I've really paid it down over time, because you kind of pay for it when you get to the registry of deeds. It used to be 3.5, 4 pages long. It's probably a page and a half now. So, I paid it down over time. Things that I hardly ever checked, I thought, this is ridiculous to be carrying this on. So over time, it got a little smaller and a little smaller.
Definitely send you the orders I got for Ipswich.
Oh, I've seen other towns, they just,
That's what it is.
I just had an idea. Everyone seems like we're always talking about Plum Island, like, approved plantings or whatever. Do we have like a Newbury Conservation Commission approved plantings list?
We have a couple of different lists, and a couple have floated around over time. We've got one that was done for the Parker River National Wildlife that I'll pass around. We've got another one that I saw someone had in their hand tonight, that Karen Cumberland there, her representative, had one that we use that's common.
Is it worth, I guess, providing them later on our town, on the conservation?
I think we have it. I think it's on there.
I think it's something you to actually have a handout.
Yeah, and we have a handout. In fact, I think I remember retyping it so it's more
Yeah,
legible.
I think in the board, in that, the board with all
the things.
the sleeves in it there, yeah, I think we've got some in there.
And
So we do that.
the other note I had from this meeting is, we're talking about the sign for Forest Street. I do think that's something that, someone needs to develop.
We have never done that. That is brand new for us, so it's
I think
like
it's
the
a great
board needs a
idea.
sign.
Yeah.
Can we task you with that?
I think we should task Brian with that.
I think we should task Brian.
Task me with that.
Most towns that do that regularly, they have a bylaw, but I don't see why we couldn't do it as a condition.
Right.
Same difference. You might not, some places it's not really needed. So, some places where it's needed, you have the signs or.
So the way, when I was an agent, what we did was we just had, 30 of them or 40 of them lying around in the office, and then we would sell them to, whoever needed them. at cost. And so they just sort of come in with a check, you're like, all right, here's 15 signs, here's 4 signs, whatever.
Where'd you buy them, Brian?
Some print shop,
Well, I guess why I'm asking that is, do we want to be in the, I don't know that I want to be selling. Yeah, you need to get some signs, and here's where you get them.
Well, right, but then you run into the excuses, you run into the delays, and you run into the, as opposed to just saying like, all right, here's $3.50 a pop, or, whatever, here you go, this is what you need, and I saw you, you saw me.
Okay.
You
if
know,
want that,
that kind of thing.
I look at it this way, I got your certificate of compliance, I don't see your signs.
Yeah.
So, it's either way you want to
Either
do
one
it.
and half, another than the other.
Yeah.
So are we talking plastic signs?
Basically.
Yeah, I mean, I know where to get them.
Metal signs, plastic signs.
I don't know if this is open to public discussion or not. The idea of the signs, there are a lot of communities that do have them and do them. Ipswich is one of them, they had them. The only concern I would have with what you suggested, Doug, is that you have the applicant do it, is inconsistency in the size of the sign, what's written on it.
Oh, no, there'd be some criteria.
Yeah, there would have to
It
be.
will be 5 by 5, or whatever we decide.
Right.
It will be in this,
We could even set up a
You'll buy it
template.
from this guy.
I would say we set up a template from a print shop and say, go here,
Yeah.
get X number of
And
these.
that would work if they keep a large number of them on hand, ready to go. The alternative would be if you buy them in bulk and you're selling them at cost, you're gonna get them at a cheaper price, which saves the applicant some money,
Yeah.
versus somebody going in and buying 4 at a time.
I guess I really don't care. Honestly,
Senioritis is kicking in. Not senior, but old.
I better close this fast, all right? Yeah, I think it makes sense to probably have them on hand.
All right, because they typically are gonna say, 25-foot no-build zone, Newbury Conservation Commission or something.
I have a sign connection too.
You do? Oh, okay.
Since I'm
I
chair,
said I'll email the connection.
When did Brian throw that fast?
language, sign connection, and we'll pick this
I was
back
that
up.
person.
No, language, you need to sign design, language.
All right, I can do that.
Yeah, and then if you can bring information next month, then we can decide as a board whether we're happy with it and move it forward.
Okay.
That sound good?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I've been informed that this is your final meeting.
Yeah, I wanted to make this organizational announcement. This is my last meeting. As many of you know, I'm the representative of the planning board. And so I leave the planning board as of December 1. The good news is that the planning board has just taken on 2 new people with a lot of background in local government and especially in environmentals. Maybe you know her, Kristen Grubbs of the Ipswich River Watershed Association.
Of course, yeah.
Now, I'm not saying she's going to be the planning board representative to this because she's new and she might say, wait a minute. But that's kind of the caliber of the people that are coming out of the planning board, so this is a positive thing. Again, I have no background in this area. And I learned very well. But, yeah, it's been a steep learning curve. But, so you're not going to be left alone.
Matt, did you have something else for us? Or?
No,
Okay.
I can go benefit.
All right.
Just enjoying the stimulating
Jim, I think we came on the same meeting, so it's been fun.
Could be,
Yeah, I think so. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks with you. I'll miss you.
It's fun. Yeah.
Clever way to not be chairman next meeting.
You got out of it.
Speaking of that,
Yeah, speaking of
is someone chairing the next meeting? Are you taking another meeting, or?
nobody else wants to do it, I'll do it again.
Someone else want to?
I am the alternate chairman.
That's true, you were, yeah.
Did you miss the meeting?
No, Dan's the last jerk who did this to me, that's
I
right.
had the foresight to nominate you for that position.
Oh, you threw the dirty deed.
I think you do great. I think you just practice makes perfect personally. I think you do an awesome whole.
Well, honestly,
You might feel a little rusty, maybe you want to step up.
and with what?
Don't we end it and then Cameron gets shut off?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right,
Move to adjourn.
move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
So adjourned. Oh, all in favor, so adjourned.
Aye.
There you go. All right, so adjourned. Thank you very much.